Welcome everyone to Journey of Riches, the interview series with the authors. I'm joined today by Harita Gandhi-Kashyap. She's a third generation New Zealand born Indian. She's an accountant by profession and works in the New Zealand public sector. She does a lot of volunteer work in her spare time and co-hosts an award-winning radio show and podcast called Conversations with Wahine, where they interview different inspirational women from New Zealand and around the world each week. She also co-hosts the Coconut Chats podcast, where they interview different inspirational Indian people from around the globe. Her chapter in our book, Building Self-Confidence, which was a #1 international bestseller in multiple countries, and is about domestic family abuse. That is not physical abuse, but verbal narcissistic abuse that she went through back in 2017 and 2018, and how that impacted her and her husband, and how she grew and learned from it. So great to be chatting with you today, Harita, and what an intense experience that you write about, and that really was the inspiration for your chapter. Was that a turning point? Was that really one of the turning points, a major turning point in your life?
Yeah, I think it was, because it was something that definitely affected my self-confidence and who I thought I was, and I guess, my path for my future, because, like, I've written about it in the chapter, but, I was living in Melbourne at the time, and I had moved there by myself, so my family live in New Zealand. And I met my husband when I lived in Melbourne. We started dating and et cetera, and I got to a point where I thought, "Oh, I'd love to make Melbourne home." It's not too far from New Zealand, but it's a bigger, better version, I guess. And I guess, long story short, the events of what happened with my in-laws and how they treated me and, in effect, my husband, basically got me to a point where I had just had enough of the abuse, and the fact that I didn't have any family of my own in Melbourne to think, "Oh, I'll just go spend time with them and then I can forget about what my in-laws are doing," got to a point where I got to breaking point, and I just said to my husband, "I need to move back to New Zealand." So that's what I mean by it changed the path of my future, because I had a good job in Melbourne, I'd made lots of friends, I had a life I really liked there, and I really wanted to settle down there. So it changed that whole path, having to move back home to a place that I thought I'd never move back to. And I think that's what people don't see, is like when people go through any type of abuse, whether it's physical, verbal, narcissistic, mental, whatever type of abuse it is, people sometimes think, okay, you've called out the abuse, great, but people don't always see the healing path afterwards. And for some people might heal straight away. For some people, it might take years and years to kind of rebuild their life. And that takes a real mental toll on people. And that's not what people always see. They just think, oh, okay, you've distanced yourself from your abusers, great, problem solved. But it's not that simple. And I think, narcissistic abuse, especially narcissistic and verbal, they kind of go hand in hand, I think. It's something that I find a lot of Indian and ethnic, for want of a better word, ethnic people go through, especially daughter-in-laws not being treated well by their husband's family. Like, there are hundreds and hundreds of Bollywood movies that have that in the plot line. So the plot line has to come from somewhere, it has to have happened in someone's life for the director and producer to think, let's make a movie about that. But they're always told not to speak up about it. It might be their husband telling them not to speak up about it, or it might be their parents and their family. And the reason why they're told not to speak about it, it's not because people don't believe what they're going through is true, but it's more because the family think it will bring shame and unwanted attention to them. And then I guess society, the family, friends and the uncles and aunties, I guess, will then, instead of putting the blame on the abuser, they tend to say, oh, well, what did the daughter-in-law do to deserve being treated like that? So the blame gets put on the victim, I guess, rather than the abuser. So they're always told to keep quiet about it, just push it under the rug, toughen up, or just, and I don't think that's the right way, because then the abuser's effectively getting away with what they're doing because no one's calling them out on it. So I think that's also why I really wanted to write about it in my book, because I guess I'm a bit of a black sheep, and I always have been, where if I think someone's doing something morally wrong, then I call them out on it. I don't just let them do it and turn a blind eye to it, because then that means they're going to treat other people that way because they keep thinking they can get away with it. So I guess that's why I published what I went through, to show like this is the effect that narcissistic abuse has on people, that even though you're not punching them and causing visible damage to them, it affects you mentally, and it makes you question your self-worth and all of the stuff that goes around in your mind.
Yeah, and what my understanding of what you went through as well was the gaslighting, just the constant gaslighting, and just being completely ostracized and left out, and also your husband essentially being dismissed as well, supporting, wanting to marry you. And the thing that what you actually went through is very common, particularly in Indian culture. I've heard a lot of different stories like that, and so I really appreciate your courage speaking and wanting to share about that. And very difficult to do that, because it's just not culturally done, and you're going against the grain. And so well done for doing that. And what's one takeaway that you hope readers glean from your chapter?
I think kind of what you mentioned, that, because a lot of people are told not to speak up about it, they won't. And then, they'll just kind of suffer in silence, or the only people that will know what they're going through, maybe their best friends or their mum or whoever they've actually told. But then again, they'll still be suffering in silence, because they won't know if other people have gone through it or are going through it. And I guess that's what I want my chapter to really help with, is that if someone reads it who might be going through similar, I want them to be able to read it and think, oh, wow, I'm not the only one that's been through this. And I think, like for me, when I went through it, I have lots of friends, lots of Indian friends, and a lot of them knew what I was going through because I told them. But luckily for them, they'd never been through it. They had really lovely in-laws who included them in the family. My mum's never been through it. So even though I had all these people that were supporting me, they didn't actually know what it was like to be in the thick of it. So I want my chapter to kind of make someone who's going through it feel less alone, because I felt really alone when I went through it. I'll give you an example. I won't name her name, but when I was going through it, one of my close friends who lives in Melbourne, so we got married at very similar times, and her, we used to spend a lot of time together because my husband and her husband were friends as well. And I used to see the way her in-laws treated her. She was welcomed into the home. They were living with her husband's parents before they got married, which a lot of people know Indian people don't tend to live before marriage. But she was welcomed into the home. I heard her call her mother-in-law mum quite a lot, even before they got married. And I could just see how she was being treated, while at the same time I was going through hell with my in-laws. And even though, like, that friend, she was really supportive. We could go to them whenever we needed, someone to vent out to or cry to. But at the same time, she didn't actually understand, because she was lucky enough to be welcomed into her in-laws' family. So, and I think sometimes when you're surrounded with people that will always listen to you and try to help you, but if they don't have that lived experience, sometimes it makes that loneliness feel like even more loneliness, because you're thinking, what have I done to deserve this? And how come all these people around me have got a happy family. I know their families aren't perfect, but how come they're not going through the situation I'm going through? And then it then makes you think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. I must have done or said something to deserve being treated the way I'm being treated, because my friends aren't being treated like this by their families and their in-laws. So then, like when you don't really have people that have that lived experience around you, it makes you question everything. And I think like that's really why I wrote about it. So after we moved back to New Zealand in 2019, I think like I felt physically safe being in a different country to my abusers. I thought, okay, if I write this, they can't come and knock on my door and yell at me because they don't know my parents' address. And also they're not going to come all the way to New Zealand. So I kind of thought, okay, I think as part of my healing, I want to write about this. I've always kind of been like that whenever I go through anything traumatic, as a way of healing, like I find things like talking to a counselor and stuff, while it is helpful, I find writing is much more helpful because I feel like I've got all the thoughts out of my brain and I've put them on paper. So it's not forgotten, but now I can clear up space in my brain to think about better things. So it's kind of like a brain dump, but sometimes with time, you forget details as time goes on and as you're healing. So I kind of do it to think, okay, if I've written it all down in paper, detail for detail, I'm never going to forget it because I can come back to what I wrote. But at least I don't have to think about it all the time because, it's written and kept in a safe space, and now I can focus on better things. And even after, so I've written in a much more extended version, which is like 25,000 words or something. And I posted that on a couple of blogs back in the day, back in like 2020, 2021. And I had random people that I didn't even know, but they'd come across my blog on different websites and they commented under it, writing, oh, I've been through this, or I'm going through this right now. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to actually feel less alone by reading it, thinking, oh, this does happen to other people. And I guess also the slight difference with me is, like you said in my intro, I'm a third generation New Zealand born Indian. So I was not born in India and I have never lived in India. And a lot of people think, probably also because of Bollywood and the likes, people seem to think that this only happens to Indian people living in India, not Indian people that are born and brought up in the Western world. Like my granddad was born in New Zealand, hence why I'm third generation, and my husband was born in Melbourne. So people tend to think, oh, if you're an Indian person living in the Western world, you would have adapted and become a bit more Western in your thinking, and but it's not true for everyone. This can still happen to Indian and ethnic people living all over the world. So I've even had a couple of Indians living in New Zealand and Australia that have read my blog, and some of them have said, wow, we didn't even realize that this would happen in a country like Australia. And I was like, well, there you go, you learned something new. So I think like that's the whole point of writing it, just to bring awareness and to make people that are going through similar feel much less alone.
Yes, I feel you definitely achieved that. And I imagine like it was quite challenging to refine it and write it. What were some of the challenges that you went through?
Yeah, so you know about a lot of the challenges.
Yeah.
So and I think the problem with that was because when you first approached me and asked me if I wanted to contribute a story, and I said yes, the problem was the fact that I had already had a 20,000 plus word story written. Like I said, I wrote it back in 2019, 2020. And I kind of thought, oh yeah, okay, I can just edit that and delete it down to, I think it was 3,500, 4,000 words. I don't remember now how many words it was in your chapter. But when I was editing it, I found it really hard to delete things out while still keeping the essence of everything in there without missing things. Because the way I write, and obviously like I'm kind of doing like a brain dump of my trauma, I guess, I tend to write in a very informal, just like a journal way, like this is what
Right.
happened on this date, this month, rather than making it into a story about people's feelings and all of that. It's kind of just my brain dump. So when I was trying to summarize that, because I'd written like I'd written the original version kind of in a sequence of events, how the abuse started from the very beginning back in 2017 through to basically now. Because again, people think the abuse has ended, but things still happen every now and then because they're still in contact with my husband. So they'll say things to him, which I find out about. So it kind of, it's kind of like a journal where it never ends. I'll just keep adding to it. And so when I was trying to summarize it, I was like, oh, I don't know how to summarize this now, because if I take that incident out, the readers aren't going to know about that incident, because it's made up of lots of small incidents that just add up into a big mountain. And, we went back and forth about that a lot because I really struggled to get the word count down. And then I think I struggled to add in the part about how it empowered and made me grow, because when I had first written all of that, like 5 years ago, I didn't really put my personal feelings into it when I was writing it. I just wrote, this is what happened today, this is what happened, rather than, oh, okay, let's self-reflect and how have I grown from it. And that's what we needed to have in your book, about how we've grown from it and how we've become stronger and self-empowered. So I struggled with that part, and also rereading everything I'd written kind of in a way made me go through the trauma again, because when you're reading it, you're like, oh yes, that's right. Because when, like, my coping mechanisms are like, okay, cool, I've written it, it's safe somewhere, and then a part of me kind of forgets about it as time goes on. So when I reread it, it was like reliving all the trauma again while trying to cut the words down and add in extra things about empowerment and all of that. So I found that really difficult. But then, I listened to quite a few podcasts, and some of them, they've interviewed authors and things like that. And a lot of authors say that that's one of the hardest things, that they would have their first draft, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. They'll have their first draft, but then when they're refining and then refining again and again, that's actually much harder than writing the first draft, because it's really hard. The person that's written it thinks everything in there's good, but obviously to publish it, you can't have all of that. It needs to be refined. So I was like, oh, okay, well, all authors go through something similar to this. So at the end of the day, it's kind of normal.
Yes, and I mean, it's just so real, especially being triggered by the past events and rereading it. Yes, it's healing in the long run, but initially when you're going through it, it's wow, and so it basically can manifest some funky stuff into your reality as well, because that's kind of like the point of focus, right? Um,
Mm.
but you've gone on to do some like extraordinary things, like that you probably wouldn't have done if you didn't have these, really intense experience with the in-laws. And so, how does your chapter connect with your work, mission, and philosophy of life?
Yeah, that's really true. I think if I was still living in Melbourne and if this stuff hadn't have happened, I don't think I'd be doing any of the volunteer work that I do now. So basically, like, after we moved back to New Zealand in 2019, I got quite involved with the National Council of Women New Zealand, on a volunteer basis. And that just happened by fluke, because one of my friends was the president of the Wellington branch at the time. And she just said to me, oh, do you want to come along to one of our monthly meetings? See if you like it, join if you like it, don't join if you don't. So I thought, oh, why not? Because I'd moved back here. I'd got a job, but I didn't really have any after work hobbies, etc. So I thought, oh, yeah, cool, I'll go along to a couple of meetings. I really liked it, so I decided to become a member. And basically, National Council of Women, it's quite hard to describe what they do, because they do a lot of different things. But they're basically an umbrella organisation. Actually, Australia has National Council of Women organisations as well. Basically, they're an umbrella group for all women-related things. So we work closely with government. We also work closely with different women-related nonprofits and charities in the country. But every region, so I'm part of the Wellington branch, and there's 12 branches in New Zealand, I think. Every region's branch has the autonomy to do whatever they think is best for the woman in their region. So what we do in Wellington is very different to what people in other parts of the country do. And that's just because Wellington is a lot closer to Parliament. The issues women in Wellington have might be different to what rural New Zealand women have. So it's, do a lot of different things, but I can't really explain in detail what we do. But I really liked what they did at the end of the day, and also like the women that were part of it were really lovely women. And I was like, oh, I want to learn a lot from these people and, get to know them a lot better. And then in 2021, the opportunity to start a radio show that was sponsored by National Council of Women came up. So Wellington Access Radio, which is a community radio station. I'm sure Australia must and other countries must have similar things. It's basically a community radio station where all different community groups, so different cultures, rainbow community, etc., have access to studio space, and they can do live radio and pre-recording radio, and then their show gets aired on that radio station. And basically we have access to very cheap or free studio space, and so the opportunity to start a show came up on their station. They had asked National Council of Women if anyone was interested, because they didn't really have many feminist or gender equality type of groups having a show with them. So at the time I thought, oh yeah, I'll give it a go, because again, just by fluke, my husband and I were living in the CBD, only one street away from where the radio studio is. So I thought, oh, I can make it work. I can just do it after work one day and then literally cross the road and go home. And so, I put my hand up to start it. But at the time I'd said, oh, I don't want to do it on my own. I want to do it with other ladies from NCW, because I don't really like doing things in my spare time by myself. I think because my actual job is quite isolated, I like to do things in my spare time with other people, to get that like social extrovert side out of me. So there were 3 other ladies at the time from National Council of Women that said, oh yeah, we'll start it with you. So the 4 of us started it together, and we were given free rein on how we conducted the radio show. So at the time we thought, rather than just the 4 of us talking all the time, because otherwise we're going to run out of content very quickly, or we'll have to start talking about our personal lives the way a lot of these podcasts do, we thought, why don't we actually interview different Wellington women? So it first started off as interviewing Wellington women about their jobs, their lives, etc. And then, we kind of just learned as we went, because all of us came from different backgrounds. None of us actually came from a radio or journalism background. I remember when we started the radio show, none of us even knew how to use the decks that they use for editing, and the staff had to show us a couple of times. And then we kind of just thought, oh yeah, that worked really well, or maybe that could be improved for future. So we started that in 2021, and over the years we've just kind of learnt from there. So now we interview inspirational women, mostly from New Zealand, but sometimes we interview women from other countries as well, as long as there's some type of link to New Zealand. We sometimes interview men as well, but again, our questions are more related towards what women would want to hear about. No 2 interviews are the same. A lot of our interviews actually appeal to different audiences, because we don't have just one genre, or we don't just interview politicians. We'll interview politicians, actors, CEOs, like such a wide range of people. And I think, if I hadn't been through what I did with my in-laws, I don't really think I would have been very interested in doing a radio show, or even becoming like part of National Council of Women. I might have just thought, oh, that's not really for me or something. But I saw something in it that resonated a lot with me, because I thought a lot of my experiences, women are the people that go through a lot of domestic violence and all of that kind of puts them back in life because of the things they've been through. So I thought, I'm going to do what I can to help, I guess, in a way, and talk about these things. So that's kind of what the radio show is all about, like sharing inspirational women and people's journeys about their career, how it ties into their life, their values, all of that. And I think, like, as a result of that, my life philosophy has also changed quite a bit, and I try not to dwell on the past too much because, otherwise you keep dwelling on the past rather than focusing on how you can make your future better. And that's what I've kind of put all my energy into. Like, I kind of, like having this radio show on a weekly basis keeps us, there's 6 of us co-hosts now on the team, but it keeps us all busy on what guests can we get next, or how can we make the show even better, or, what type of content can we cover next. And I think like that's really helped me turn all my frustrations and all that negative energy into something positive. Like as a result, we won the best access radio category at the New Zealand Radio and Podcast Awards a couple of months ago in June this year. And I think like that was amazing. We weren't even expecting to be finalists, let alone win. So that kind of made me think, oh, other people have also seen the good that we're doing. And it just gives us more, more inspiration to carry on and make the show even bigger and better in the future.
Well, congratulations. That's a great achievement. And
Thank you.
yeah, especially that it was so unexpected. So yeah, hopefully it helps you get broaden the listenership. And there were a lot of things that you didn't include in your chapter because you started out at 25,000 words and then had to get it down to 4,500. Were there stories and examples that you didn't include but influenced your writing?
Yeah, definitely. So what I went through with my in-laws was not actually the first time I've been through narcissistic and verbal abuse. I've been through it in the past, probably since I was about 15 years old. I'm now 37, so I've been through it with extended family members, and I guess back then I didn't really write about it as a teenager because I didn't want to break my family apart, but it was caused by extended family members that married into the family, not blood relatives. And I guess like back then I did kind of know that the way they were treating me wasn't right, but I was probably too young to really put a label on it. And like my parents, luckily, they believed what I went through, and I think they could see it for themselves. So they did whatever they could to keep me and my brother safe from this extended family member. They distanced us whenever, they wouldn't make us go to their house, etc., because they believed what I had told them. But a lot of the rest of the extended family didn't believe it. So like I told a couple of people in my family, oh, this person said this to me, or this person kind of treated me like this, and I noticed they treat other people much better. And a lot of the extended family didn't believe me, and they just said, oh, that's how she is, or oh, you just have to ignore it, like they just brushed it off. While they would say that to me, while at the same time they continued having a great relationship with this extended family member. So I was like, well, I saw that and I was like, I've tried to tell you what they've done to me. Shouldn't that ring alarm bells in your head? Like I was basically going to the elders in my family, people my mum and grandparents' age. And I was like, you're just telling me I just need to get over it. But you are continuing to have a great relationship with them. So does that mean you don't believe me? And as a 15 to 20-year-old, you kind of think things like this. You're like, well, if you'd believed me, wouldn't you have also distanced yourself from that person? But you didn't. I see you guys hanging out, social media tells you a lot. I see you guys hanging out, going out for dinner together and all of that. So you must not believe me if you're still hanging out with them and having a great family relationship with them. And I guess like as a result of that, my family, so me, my brother, and my parents, kind of started getting excluded from things. I would notice that this person was inviting everyone else to stuff and we weren't getting invited. So I was like, oh, no one believes me then, except my parents, because everyone else is happy to play happy families despite what I've told them about how this person has treated me. So like when I was younger, I went through a lot of that, and even to a point now, that person is still very narcissistic towards us. But I think, now 20 years later, I have the tools to deal with it and just kind of live my life without letting what they're doing bother me. But when you're like in your teenage years and you're thinking, why do my grandparents believe that this auntie is doing this to me? You kind of go around in circles thinking, oh, I must be the problem then. So I think that definitely kind of probably that experience doesn't really filter into what I wrote in the chapter much, because the chapter focused on what I went through in recent years. But I think, again, if I hadn't been through what I went through 15, 20 years ago with this family member, I might not have written about this incident with my in-laws, because I might have just thought, oh, this was the one and only time it's happened in my life, rather than when it happened with my in-laws, I was like, hold on, this is someone else in my life being narcissistic and verbally abusive towards me. And I think that made me more angry and frustrated to actually write about it and do something about it, because I was like, this has happened to me before. I'm not going to let these people get away with what they're doing, I guess, in a way. So I think that what I went through in my teenage years, I think that definitely had an impact on how I wrote about what I went through with my in-laws.
Yeah, wow. It's fascinating, and yeah, something that I can relate to as well. It's very confusing to see that, well, life just goes on anyway, and it just doesn't mean anything to you. And for me, that was very confusing to go through, and imagine it was very extremely confusing for you as a 15 and 20-year-old. So yeah, it's awesome that that something good came out of it. And you've had some really good feedback with your writing and blog, and that you now have a radio show and it's won awards, and that's really cool. It wasn't in vain. All that confusion and doubt and just a struggle, that it led to something good. So do you have like a practice or something that helps you strengthen your self-confidence in daily life?
Yeah, I luckily have my husband on my side,
Yes.
who believes everything that I went through with his family.
Yeah.
And I guess that's because he actually saw it all happen in front of his eyes, rather than a lot of the time when this type of narcissistic abuse happens, only the victim is there, and there's no what do they call? There's no witnesses around to see it happen.
Yeah.
But in my case, my mother-in-law abused me in front of her son almost every single time. I don't know if that's just because she was naive or why, but she wasn't very smart about it. And she would yell at me in front of him, and she would, say all this stuff to me in front of him. So I didn't even have to go to him and say, your mum said this or did this. He was right there and he heard it and saw it all. So I never had to try and get him to believe me, because he was there. And, he would stand up for me every time his mum said or did something to insult me or my family. Like, she insulted my family to my face many times. He would actually just say, Mum, shut up. Or, Mum, why are you talking to Harita like that? So that was on my side, the fact that the abuse happened with him around, rather than me having to say, oh, Hemant, your mum said this, your dad did this, and then him being like, oh, no, that can't be right. He was like, yeah, I know they did it because I was there. So that definitely helped, having, I guess, him on my side rather than his parents' side. I had to say it like that, because you should never have to take sides between your partner and your parents, but sometimes you have to. And whenever I write and publish anything, before I publish anything, I always get him to read it, especially if it's got his name or his family's name attached to it. Well, I don't always have his family's name attached to it, but sometimes by reading it, it's obvious that it's about his family. I always get him to read it first, and I always ask him, if there's anything in here that you think is not true or that I've exaggerated, please tell me, because then I will delete or fix that up or clarify it with you, because I don't want to publish things that are not true.
Mm.
So like when I wrote that 25,000 word essay, blog, whatever you call it, He read it. He was the first person to read it. And then he said to me, yep, that's all true. And I was like, okay, cool. So I can not print it, I can publish it then, right? And he wasn't that happy about publishing it at first because, I'm airing his family's dirty laundry. But then I said to him, well, if your family had treated me like, like your wife, and not abused me, then I wouldn't have anything to write about, would I? Because I'd have nothing bad to say. So if you're saying what I've written is all true, then I think I'm in my rights to publish it because, like you can read it and you can see that this is verbal and narcissistic abuse. So I had to kind of explain that to him because I think he would have seen the fact that, if his family read it and come across it, they're going to blow up at him by saying, how could you let your wife write this about us? And at that time, I just said to him, well, I don't care. Like, if you abuse someone, you need to be prepared for your victim to speak up. Not every victim will. 9 out of 10 victims will keep quiet because they're too scared, ashamed, whatever it is. But you'll get 1 out of 10 people that will make sure other people know what their abuser has done to them. So I said to him, well, everything I've got in here is true, right? Even you're saying it's true. So I think I'm going to publish it. And if your parents don't like it, too bad. You just need to tell them, then maybe they shouldn't have abused me in the first place. And then he said, oh, yeah, actually, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, you can publish it. So first I had to kind of get him across the line because I was like, can't publish it behind his back because it's about him and his family. It's not about my family. So after that was all, fine, then that was the main thing to kind of get him, backing me. And then I think I also have I've got my parents have always been on my side, my parents and my brother. They helped us a lot when we were going through the thick of the abuse. So even though my parents at the time, or still do, lived in New Zealand and I was in Melbourne, I could ring my parents any time of the day and tell them this has just happened, or I could ring them crying. It didn't matter. They would always listen, rather than them saying, "Oh, Harita, just get over it," or "You need to improve your behaviour," which a lot of parents tell their kids that, basically saying you're the problem. Not once did they ever say to me, "You're the problem." They even said to me once, "Oh, this was before we got married." Because the abuse actually started about a year before we got married. And they'd even said to me, it's not too late to walk away. And I was like, yeah, but the thing is, it's not the problem. He's great. It's his mum that's the problem. So they were always there to support me. They even rang Hemit's parents many times to they kind of thought, again, being Indian, a lot of elders look down on their kids because of the age difference. Whereas if you've got people the same age talking to you, there's a bit more respect there. So my dad actually rang my in-laws quite a few times, trying to think if I talk to them, maybe they'll listen. But that didn't work. Instead, they just abused my parents over the phone as well. So they could see for themselves, oh, well, if his parents, who are the same age as us, are abusing us, well, now we understand how they're talking to you as well. So I was really lucky to have them on my side rather than them turning against me, which can happen quite a lot in ethnic communities. And I think just getting involved with National Council of Women and the radio show and my other podcast, Coconut Chats, has really helped me just channel these frustrations and the sadness I have into worthy causes, because throughout doing these podcasts and radio shows, I've gotten to know so many more people than what I would have otherwise known in my life, because living in New Zealand, so isolated from the rest of the world, we find a lot of our guests just through social media or through someone we know knows, word of mouth introductions. And a lot of the people we've interviewed, we're still friends to this day. And I would have never met them if I hadn't started these radio shows. So it's kind of opened my perspective on the world a lot more to actually see the struggles all these other people have gone through and how they've used all those struggles to make something better of themselves. So I think that's definitely better and more positive.
Yeah, I feel that's Yeah, that makes it worthwhile, right? That, you went through it for a reason, and as a result, you're having a bigger impact in the community and in the world at large. And so, does your hubby speak with a Kiwi accent yet?
uh, no, but the
No.
problem is we've been together for almost 10 years that I don't hear the difference between the Australian and Kiwi accent anymore. So I think I don't hear it, but other people hear his Australian accent. But because I hear his voice every day, I can't tell the difference.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Because you've got a very distinctive Kiwi accent. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite strong and polished. What, yeah, what advice would you give to someone that is struggling to believe in themselves right now?
Yeah, my main piece of advice is that you should never go through your struggles alone. You should talk to someone that you trust about what you're going through. And if they don't believe you, so if the first person you go to doesn't believe you or makes you feel even worse than what you're feeling, then find someone who does. Not everyone has a supportive mum or a supportive sister or whatever it is. Sometimes opening up to someone could make your relationship with them worse, which is a shame, but it happens a lot. So if you try to tell, for example, if you try to tell your parents about what you're going through and they don't believe you, or they try to push the blame on you and make you feel like, oh, this is all my fault, then just keep trying until you find someone who does believe you and support you. And it doesn't have to be someone that's gone through the same thing as you, because if you're going through domestic violence, trying to find support in someone else that's also gone through domestic violence is not always easy. Um,
Yes.
but just keep trying until you find someone that does listen to you without judging, and someone who does believe you, rather than saying, oh, maybe you're the problem, or maybe you need to change the way you're reacting or behaving. That's what really helped me, just having friends that actually listened, having a mum that actually listened. I mean, even my dad, but I think with women we always find a lot more connection with our mums, and when these type of things happen. Like in my case, my husband and I tried to tell his sister, who's only 2 years younger than me, and some of his family friends about what we were going through. And we weren't telling them in spite of his mother or to spread gossip, but we were telling them because we thought if we tell them, maybe they can do something to help, because they're clearly not listening to me. And why would they? I'm an outsider to the family, but they're also not listening to Hemant, who is their son. So we had thought if we try to ask some of his mum's friends for help, they might try to talk some sense into her, again because of that age respect thing. If you're talking to someone that's the same age as you, who's got kids the same age, you'll listen to them more than you're going to listen to your son who's 25 years younger than you. But my husband's sister, she made things worse. She actually said to me, oh, well, you probably deserve this. My husband's family friends, a lot of them did believe us, and actually some of them did try to talk to his parents, and his parents just said to them, no, we're not interested in changing how we behave, blah blah blah. So the family friends were kind of like, well, we've tried to help, but she doesn't want to listen. And I guess being family friends rather than actual family, they were thinking, we've done whatever we can to help, we don't know what else we can do. And then there were other people in the family that outright just didn't believe us. A lot of them actually said to him, and this was before we got married, and they said to him, well, you don't need to marry her, you can find someone better. And they said that to him in front of my face. One of his family friends, who he actually treated like his older brother, they're not blood related, but that's how close their families were, he actually said to me, oh, well, you've abused Hemant's mother so much that you don't deserve to be in this family. And I was like, hold on, we're coming to you for help, and now you've just told me that I've abused her? How in everything have I said has made you come to the conclusion that I've done the abuse? So a lot of people that we went to for help actually then put the blame back on me. And we were like, no, they're not the people to go to for help, because they're actually making this worse. So my point is that, you might encounter 10 people that don't believe you before you find that one person that does. So I guess you just have to keep on trying until someone does believe you. And I think, like, when any type of abuse happens, whatever type of abuse it is, I've realized that's why a lot of the time victims actually stay quiet, because they end up thinking, oh, no one's going to believe that this happened to me, so I don't know who to tell. Because you don't always know who's going to believe you until you've actually told them. Like, the people that my husband and I went to, we went to them for help, actually thinking they will be able to help, because they were people that were close to my husband. And then to get that type of reaction out of them that, oh, well, Hemant, you don't have to marry her, you can find someone better. We were like, hold on, you're meant to be like Hemant's older, not older brother, but, not biological older brother, and you're saying that to us? So you don't always know who's going to be in your corner until you've actually told them. And if they're those vindictive type of people, they will then go back to the abuser and say, oh, did you know Harita and Hemant said this about you? Which is what that family friend of Hemant's actually did. He went to Hemant's mum the day after and said, they came over to my house last night and said all of this about you. And we were like, you're meant to be Hemant's older brother. If we can't trust you with this type of stuff, then what use are you in our lives,
Yeah,
So I think that's why a lot of the time victims stay quiet, because they're like, I don't know who to trust. I don't want to make things worse than they already are. I don't want to be more isolated than I already am. So they just keep quiet and just push it under the rug, which I don't think's right. And at the end of the day, if you don't find someone that trusts and believes you within your friend or family circle, then go to a counsellor who you can talk to and someone who can give you coping mechanisms.
yeah, so critical because it's so easy to feel isolated, and people find it very difficult to hear those sort of things. And from my experience, it's almost like they feel conflicted between the two. Oh, like, who should I believe? Because I've had amazing experiences with this person, but I also, the person that's coming to me, I respect them as well. Or, other times it's people just show their true colours. It was already
Yeah.
there in the first place, and that just brought it out. And so it's almost like a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways, that you know who's going to support you, and you can sort of flush them out before something really, a really deeper betrayal could have happened, financial or not just the abuse side. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard when you're going through those things, I find, to realize that life is happening for us. Because if you would have stopped, or because I believe that there was times where you were suicidal, and hadn't you taken your life, then you wouldn't have had the impact you've had on so many different women today. And I find the fact that you believe, the whole fact that you realise that sweeping under the mat doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't. It is the person that's sweeping under the mat, they suffer even more. The people they're supporting by sweeping under the mat, then they abuse someone else. It doesn't stop. And then their life doesn't get better, whereas your life has gotten better. I'm sure still things come up and that rock your world a little bit, but you're still out there helping people, living that courageous path, and that social proof of winning that rodeo award is, that's proof. Proof is in the pudding, right? That you're making a difference, and so to keep moving forward and meeting incredible people and lifelong friendships.
Definitely, yeah. And what's funny is after I've published a couple of these things, a few people that are like in my life, like some friends and family, like, they've read it and they've said, oh, we know not to mess with you. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the point, like, if you're not doing anything bad, then why, what do you mean you don't, I know not to mess with you? Basically, is, oh, I know I can't get away with anything if I do something to you because you might write about me next. Yeah, well, that's a bit of an odd comment, but so sometimes you get comments like that from people, but I'm like, well, that's a reflection on yourself, because if you're a genuine good person, I'm not going to throw you under the bus and write rubbish about you that's not true.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you mentioned that, and it's almost, it's a bizarre comment. And so then that type of thing is okay, and this is type of thing that wasn't just an isolated incident. It happened over a number of years. And that was something that Matt was dealing with as well, because he was keeping secrets from you, right? Because he didn't want to like for you to feel uncomfortable, and but he came out and he's like, I can't hang on to this anymore. But my mum was, making life really difficult, and because he wanted to propose to you much earlier.
Yeah.
She gave the ring, and which is part of the Gujarati culture that the grandmother would pass the ring down, and she refused to do that, and
Yeah.
so they delayed it, and he'd already made plans. It was kind of this last minute thing, and it was like
Mhm.
just a series of these things would just happen on the weekly, if not every other day. Um,
Yeah. And that was like when they ended up reading it, I never sent them what I'd written, but on social media, people come across it and then must have forwarded it to them, and they came across it, and they said to him, "Oh, she's humiliated us by writing this." And obviously, they didn't say that to me because I have not had communication with them since beginning of 2018. But they rang him and said, "How could she write this about us? She's humiliated us." And Hemant was like, "Well, is anything written in there false?" And they had no answer to that, right? Because it wasn't. It was all true. And his mum was like, "Oh, she's embarrassed us so much with all of this." And I'm like, "No, I haven't embarrassed you. I've just told people what you did, fact for
yeah.
fact, you know?" I'm like, there's a difference between humiliating you based on something that's not true and just telling people what you actually did. If you can't read what you did, maybe you should not have done it. And that whole part that you said about how he wanted to propose to me, yeah, so he had a whole plan after we'd been dating for about 8, 9 months. He had a plan to propose to me, and his mum, I think, had the ring in a jewelry safe at a bank that only she had the code to. And she said to him, "You're not ready to get engaged, so I'm not going to give you the ring." And we were I would have been 28, 29, and he was about 30. We weren't kids. We weren't getting engaged behind anyone's back. We'd been dating for almost a year. Our families had met each other. So I think his mum never knew that I knew that incident. And I was like, well, we talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you're too embarrassed that I've written about that, well, then maybe you should have had that conversation with me and saying, "I don't think you're ready to marry my son yet," or have an open and honest conversation with me rather than not giving him the ring. And when we were on that holiday the whole week, because he had told my best friend he was going to propose to me. So that whole week, a part of me was expecting him to propose. And when we came back to Melbourne, so we'd gone to Queenstown for a week, got back to Melbourne, and my best friend asked, "Oh, did he propose?" And I was like, "No, he didn't." But I couldn't have that conversation with him because I wasn't meant to know he was going to propose. And so I was then thinking, why didn't he propose? Like, does he not want to be with me? Whereas actually it was because his mum didn't give him the ring. And so when she read all of that, she was like, "Oh, this is so embarrassing because now people are going to know." And I was like, "Are you just ashamed that people now know how you treated me?" Yeah.
Well, also an opportunity to come out and apologize. I
Yep.
did the wrong thing, and rather than like, well, no, I just get confused by that. I mean, so she doesn't regret having done that. You know what I mean? Like that's the what's really weird about it that they can't then come up and say, "Well, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? It's never too late to say I'm sorry. But
No,
yeah,
it's not. I agree. Right. If someone had written stuff like that about me,
yeah,
then I would have read it and thought, "Oh, wow, I've done all of this to this person. I've made them feel like this." The first thing I would do is pick up the phone and apologize to them and have a conversation to just clear everything up. But his parents, I don't know, take a different approach. And instead of thinking, "Oh, we should just, what's happened in the past has happened in the past. Let's try to talk things out and make a good future," his parents then just make things worse. So instead of actually reading what I've written and then I guess taking accountability for their actions, their reaction is to say to him that I have embarrassed and humiliated them. So then, in effect, it boosts their ego about why they hate me so much. And then, like another example is beginning of this year, his younger sister got married, um, and Hemant was invited to the wedding, but they told him, "Please come by yourself." So I was like, that was another opportunity. There's only two siblings. They don't have more than, it's just the two of them. His family didn't come to our wedding because of all these problems. And then we didn't go to his sister's wedding. So I was like, is that how you want to remember things in the future where the two siblings never went to each other's weddings because you had so many family problems. Whereas, we got married in 2018. We moved to New Zealand in 2019. It's now 2025. So you'd think the sister could have spoken up, even if the mum doesn't want to. His sister could have said to his parents, look, whatever's happened in the past has happened, but I want my brother at the wedding. But Hemant had said to his parents, I'm not coming to the wedding unless Harita's also invited. And they said, no, she's not invited. So he decided not to go. So someone, out of the mum, dad, or the sister, somebody could have stepped in and said, look, we want Hemant at the wedding. We're only going to get him if Harita's also invited. Let's just invite her. Whatever's happened in the past has happened in the past. Let's move on. But they can't. So I guess sometimes with people, elders, you don't always get an apology out of them. And I don't expect an apology, but you think about how you make your future better. Like whatever's happened in the past, we can't change, but let's try to reconcile in the future. But instead of thinking that way, every opportunity they get, they just think, how do we continue excluding Harita? And what they don't realize is by excluding me, they're also excluding their own son because he doesn't go to things unless I'm invited as well. So then, as a result of that, he didn't go to his only sister's wedding. And it's like, is that what you want? And they keep on, instead of creating good memories, they just keep on creating all of this drama where people that would have gone to his sister's wedding definitely noticed he wasn't there. And a lot of them would have known why, but again, not going to speak up. Whereas his mum...
Almost like a Bollywood movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
his mum, I don't know for sure, but if anyone had asked his mum why he wasn't there, I'm pretty sure she would have been quick to say Harita didn't let him come. That was not the case at all. The case was, he was like, well, how can I go to Melbourne to my sister's wedding knowing Harita's not invited and she has to stay at home? How's that going to make my wife feel? And when I come back home, is that not going to cause arguments or frustration, So, but they would have just been quick to say Harita didn't let him come. So it's like, you could have invited us. I wouldn't have caused drama at the wedding, but they don't see it that way. They just think, no, she's not in this family. We don't know her, so not invited. So it's like you kind of think, okay, well, whenever future things come up, that's probably how they're going to react every time. And that's fine because the ball is in their court. It's not me causing that rift. They're the ones that keep on thinking, how do we make the situation even worse and even worse?
Well, I really appreciate you speaking up about it and willing to share it. And of course, people can actually read the full version, which you have the link in your chapter, and so they can read the full version. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or add to what we've shared already?
No, I think that's most of it. I think probably the main thing is just like I said earlier, it's like when a lot of these abusive things happen, people need to realize it's not just one isolated incident. It's a lot of the time a lot of small different things that kind of add up. And then even when the abuse is called out, like I wrote my first draft of my long essay back in 2020 during lockdown. But even after 2020, different incidents have happened. Like my husband's sister's wedding was in January of this year, 2025. So, incidents still continue to happen that have an impact on our feelings and things like that. So people need to realize that when someone's gone through abuse, it's not just okay, you're safe now, so good, get over it now. It's not like that. Healing is like an ongoing path. And sometimes you might get really well down your healing path, and then some incident might happen again that puts you back 5 steps. Like for me, when him and sister got married, that really put me back because the first thing I said to him and also my parents, I said to them, all of this, the majority of all of this abuse happened so many years ago. We've been back in New Zealand for 6 years, and the fact that they still can't just think, okay, let's just do something peaceful here. It still makes me think, oh, how's, it's just going to carry on like this. And that put me back 5 steps. And like when I saw a lot of his sister's wedding photos on social media, like the first thing I said to his sister said to him, it was, "Oh, look at your sister's wedding photos," because I could see them on other people's Instagram stories, and it made me feel shit inside to know that he'd been invited, but to know that they actually didn't even care that we weren't there. Like in all the photos, it looked like they were having a great time, having a fun time at their 5-day Indian wedding. And it made me feel like crap. I was like, after all these years, still they can't even acknowledge my existence. So, 5 years of healing, and then I was just like kind of back to square one for a couple of days. And then I was like, no, I think a part of me knew that this was going to happen. So, I need to know how to cope with this. So that's what other people need to realize, that you can't just say to someone, "Oh, well, that happened to you 5 years ago, you should be over it by now." Because as you go through life, other incidents might happen that kind of take you back to that place. So it's kind of like an ongoing, I think healing is a very ongoing journey throughout life.
Yeah, it's so true. And I've gone through something similar within my family, and every Christmas it comes up a little bit,
Yep.
not as intense or as bad as your experience, I would say. But yeah, it's similar. It's just not nice, and it's just so unfortunate that they can't let that go and can't accept you as their daughter-in-law. So. But I'm just glad that you're able to, come to some sort of terms with it, and hasn't stopped you to make a difference in humanity and around your community, that you've actually, you've looked for reasons to actually bring value to your world and to other people's world, and
Yep.
you're writing this chapter from such a grounded place of wanting to help other people not feel so alone. Because when you're so ostracized like that, then it's very hard to be validated by other people that haven't gone through it. And so, respect to you for having the courage to sharing this, Harita, and I appreciate you stepping up. And it's been awesome chatting with you. And I hope this makes a difference to people that have gone through something similar, and it's so prevalent and widespread. And just hopefully it can inspire people to open up a dialogue. There's solutions, and it doesn't have to always be a problem, and we can forgive and move on, and hopefully that some good comes out of this.
Yeah, and I think you don't always have to forgive your abuser. But there's that saying, forgive and forget. I think you can forgive, but you don't have to forget what they've done. I think to
Doesn't
create.
make it right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we'll put some links down below where people can read your chapter in building self-confidence, and also in your bio where they can click on the link and read the full version. And so, it's just an honor to collaborate with you and to interview you, and appreciate you. And we'll also put the handles to your podcast and radio so people can connect in with you there. Is there any other links that we should make available where people can reach and reach out to you, connect with you? Maybe they're struggling with something.
Yeah, people are more than welcome to message me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. More than happy to collaborate with other people, or if other people are going through something similar, if other people who listen to this interview think, "Oh, I've been through that," or going through it right now, feel free to contact me anytime.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. That's great that you're making yourself available. We can also put your email in there if you like as well. That's okay. And just really appreciate you stepping up. It's unfortunate. We can't change it, but I feel like you're taking the right steps, that you're helping, inspiring other women out there, and to make a difference, and to it doesn't have to be the end of the world, that you can still live a fulfilling life to a degree. And just really, and congratulations again on the New Zealand Radio Awards. That's pretty amazing. So I appreciate you, Harita, and wishing you a blessed rest of the day. And of course, if people want to get more of these interviews, subscribe, and we'll send them your way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.